All right, welcome back to the SOF podcast. We decided to do an episode today all about the craziest stories that we have in business and in life. And holy fuck, do we got some heaters. I'm looking at you, Landon.
Really gonna stay with me or what?
No, maybe you're right. We should start off with more of like a chill story, like ease the listeners into it, and then come back to like the King Kunta story here closer to the end.
We can't just open them up with the banger of all stories to start off.
And then they just click off and are like, we don't need to watch the rest.
We don't need to watch this through Scrubs anymore.
All right. So we're diving into Tristan's story or what?
I like that that's where the angle went to. We don't need the King Kunta. We're gonna go into the subtle. Here, Tristan.
No, you got an epic story. Don't play this down.
Don't play it down.
Because I haven't even heard it, but
I am definitely I would say I'm probably the newest of the entrepreneur journey for sure. I don't know. Actually, I'm not too sure.
You've been doing it for how many years?
I guess just a year now. But I've been a personal trainer online since 2018. So we've been doing this for quite a while.
You got a hot minute.
I've been doing it for a while.
Your story is really good for anyone who is in university, about to graduate, wants to start a business, or for anyone that's maybe looking at taking their situation and getting creative and capitalizing on it in a new way that allows them to excel their business quicker. So your story is really, really good for that type of person who's looking for that.
Yeah, I think so too. I think let's even backtrack even a little bit more before we even started, we'll call it the entrepreneur journey, is COVID seemed like the worst thing on the planet. Things were closed down. We were in quarantine. You couldn't buy toilet paper anywhere. So you're kind of just like cleaning yourself up with your socks. So that sucked for a while. But at the time, I couldn't get a job. I lost my mill job. I really couldn't get any sort of like good landscaping job at the time because everything was filled. So it's like as a student who had to go to school and pay for everything, I'm like, well, what am I going to do? So I've had this personal training certificate for the last 3 years that I've only really used for a little bit of online stuff. So then I was like, why don't I just make a fitness challenge? It's easy. It's online. People are at home anyways. You can't go into a gym. So let's supply the consumers with in-home workouts. If you have like gym equipment, because the gym equipment industry went crazy during COVID, then here's a plan for that. If you want to go outside and run, here's an endurance plan for that. And it actually went super well, partnered up with the nutritionist to kind of make it a little bit more high ticket. And it went great. Like we had Apple AirPods as the grand winner who got the most progress. And that's what really started everything off.
We might want to actually go into this one a little bit more because your story of launching the fitness challenges straight up, like Tristan didn't plan this or anything. This wasn't like I was staying with him during COVID, like at his place when he was launching the challenge. So I got to see like secondhand, like his whole process of launching. And it wasn't like, okay, if we're going to do a fitness challenge, like how do we do our marketing? How do we do this? Like, let's split test some ads. Tristan was literally like, I'm going to do a fitness challenge. I was like, okay, cool. Let's get started on it. When are you launching it? He's like, next fucking week. And he just did it. Like he just didn't he didn't wait like or skip a beat. He's like, I'm going to align with a nutritionalist. Here's how we're doing the programs. Here's where I'm going to do the outreach. Done. And he just went like right into it cold without any like split testing, market tests, or ever doing it before.
I would say the best part about it too is it's going to be so relatable to everyone in university that has no fucking clue what you're going to do after. Like I'm taking this thing, but like what am I actually going to do once I leave? And I think it's a great thing because you did it while you were still in university. And a lot of university students and people think, hey, the next phase of my life is I get a job after university. Why not? You got 4 years to work on something. Like you could have started this in year one, right? Imagine if you would have done it year 1 to year 4. So it would be a great inspiration for anyone who's going into that kinesiology area, like what you can do in your first year to have some real good business once you're done.
Yeah. No, it's so true. And that's actually, it's basically what actually happened. We're going to launch a fitness challenge and we launched it within 2 weeks. Like it was crazy, but it was funny because Taylor's recommendation, he's like, hey man, like read this book. It was The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And basically the message that really clicked with me with that book was he's just like, why are you wasting all of your time on your weaknesses, trying to better your weaknesses, trying to do something that you want to get better at, but why don't you just go 100% in on that one thing you're absolutely passionate about? And that's what clicked. And I was like, well, I'm great with a weed whacker. I can make someone's lawn look great. But what I can do better is actually provide them with the services I've done for the last 4 years of being a personal trainer. So
and your athletic background.
And my athletic background being a volleyball player, right? So that's what really was like, we're doing the fitness challenge. I didn't know how to market it. I barely marketed it. I literally made
Where did you do the marketing? If you want to elaborate on that.
It was all on Facebook. It was all on Facebook and word of mouth. So I literally just made a couple videos, launched it on my Facebook page. It actually got a lot of shares. A lot of different people were messaging me about it. People I didn't know, people I haven't heard from in years were like, hey, this is so cool what you're doing. Where's your registration? So all I had was a couple links in my Facebook bio and my Instagram bio.
Dude, I need to take a second to pop into this because you guys haven't seen his first promo vid. I hope that you have it.
No,
Tristan,
I do actually have it, but it's horrible.
We will have to show you guys because we made fun of him so much for it. His first vid was puts a camera in front of him and he just doesn't even blink and he's super serious. And you guys know Tristan's always joking, always smiling. He's like,
you don't blink.
Yeah, I didn't blink.
It's like, hi, welcome to the Ape Fitness Challenge. This is our goal. We want to get you fit through COVID. And seriously, didn't even blink once. And he was like monotone, straight face, like not Tristan at all. And that was his only real marketing tool aside from word of mouth. And your challenge was still a success.
It was a huge success. We actually had a bunch of great sponsorships too. Like we had one company donated over $1,000 worth of like fitness equipment to give out for prizes. Yeah, it was sweet. And he donated for my other challenge too that I did, but we can talk about that after. So that was kind of like my first step in getting a wide audience to tone in on my brand. Because even from that challenge, I think I still have half the people who did the challenge as online clients today.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Just to bring that up, that's a good point from a marketing perspective is a lot of people don't realize the power of challenges and how that can actually convert long-term clientele. And I mean, you even just look at like 75 Hard, Project 50, all these types of challenges. They have a set parameter, date and time. But then the people that actually go through it and have been successful through it, they don't stop. They go next. That's why 75 Hard then pivoted to having phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, or whatever it be, right? Because they realized, holy shit, okay, the 75 days was impactful, but then people want to keep going and moving forward. So it's interesting to hear that you still have half the clientele from your challenge.
Yeah.
Shows the power of that, challenge marketing, I guess you call it.
There's two things I really want to bring up on this real quick. For the challenges, you just made me think about, so as a marketing tool, do you guys think challenges work in the fitness industry because you give people a very specific, actionable goal with every step along the way? Where if you were just to if they're just like, hey, I want to get fit. Like a lot of people don't have that very specific, actionable goal. They're like, I just want to get into fitness. So a challenge comes in and says, here's your goal. Here's what you're going to do every day. And here's a community of people doing it together so you're not alone.
I think a big part of the challenge is the community, but the main part of it is the set parameters of time. Mm-hmm. So I think if you made it even like a 6-month challenge, that's almost too long for a lot of people. People want like a quick hit, right? So I think even 75 days, I'd argue, would be like the longest you'd want to do from a challenge standpoint, because what you want is that quick hit. And then once they get that first one of like, wow, I just completed the 4-week challenge, I feel amazing, they don't want to stop. So I think that's why challenges are so good, is because it's a time restricted parameter.
It creates momentum.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's a good point.
Which allows to have success, especially in fitness, because a lot of people are like, hey, I want to lose weight. So then they go, they're sore, they're not really feeling it, but they have a community that everyone else is doing it, but it just creates that momentum, and they can just see like, oh, okay, it's 30 days long or it's 50 days long. Like I can do this for 50 days, where of the standard person, if they just go, hey, I want to start losing some weight, they think like, oh, I'm gonna have to eat broccoli and chicken for a year. It just gives them the momentum and the push to.
It almost just gives them that like direct path of like, here's everything that you've probably wanted to do or ever thought of, and here's 100% guidance. That's what I really like about it. Plus, if you put on the challenge, it kind of adds that competitive spark that I think everyone does have. You may not be like the person who wants to compete in CrossFit or maybe needs to go in there and hit the PR on the bench, but you competing against someone will initially, I think, drive you towards that success a lot more.
That's true.
Which I think is a big part about the challenges.
That's really good. I think that might be, do you have something else to add to that, Russ?
No, I was just going to say, like, what do you, like, relate this a lot to kids who are taking that program and just what it actually did for you after you did the challenge, because you didn't have to actually go start working some job you didn't want to do just as like a little bit of a filler, like, those filler jobs that you have as a kid, like Home Depot, you know what I mean? Whatever you had to work, you know what I mean? Where this job, it literally put you to the career path you wanted to just from creating that challenge. You didn't have to do something you didn't want to do. You're already able. You left university, you had a clientele, you're able to make money, and you sustained your life since day one from after
literally.
university.
It was kind of like what really switched when we did the fitness challenge was, well, it was actually very unorganized from a business standpoint, which kind of made it a little bit more cool in my opinion. Cause I'm like, man, I never thought I could my business partner was also amazing. The nutritionist who helped me out with it. She was great. She helped with the branding. She was really good, but we did it on 2 weeks notice and it was a huge success. So I'm like, if we can do this on 2 weeks notice, I can literally do whatever I want at that point. I never have to go work another job. And that's what it really showed. So like, I will never work another job because whatever idea I have in mind in this occupation, I'm just going to go do now.
Can you elaborate for people? Let's say someone's in like fitness right now, they're listening and they're like, I want to do a challenge. Are you comfortable sharing the amount of people you had signed up, like the amount of profits you were able to get from your first one, just to like provide an idea of the first challenge? Like, what did it look like on the back end of the business?
Yeah. So when we first initially had a bunch of people register, we had a bunch of people drop out. Like people will register and they'll think it's a good idea. And then they're like, you'll have a lot of people who actually like pull out. So on 2 weeks notice, shares on my Facebook page. I think I had over 100 shares on that one really bad video of marketing it. And then the actual people who actually registered, we had 58 people register.
That's amazing.
For it. Yeah.
And you hadn't really posted consistently on socials or anything before that.
No,
right?
I think I had 32 posts on my Instagram.
Over years.
Years and years and years of it, right?
I find this like such an interesting story because I've coached a lot of kids in hockey and I still keep in touch with some of them and they talk about like what they should be doing right now in university. And so like I was talking to these guys who are taking business, but they want to go in finance. And the one kid in particular, he wants to build up a book of business to invest people's money. Awesome. So like I was chatting with them. I was like, hey, like if you started now just sharing financial advice about what kids your age can do to save money, as soon as you graduate, you could have potential sales, like potential clients that right at your fingertips as soon as you're certified as that CFP or wherever industry you ended up in. You would have gained their trust. They would have liked you, which is what you need to do in order to get sales. And so that's like a big thing for a lot of people in university. Like you could start it right now. Like start putting that, like what we're doing, putting that content out there, build that trust and that like factor, and then you will have some instant sales right when you graduate.
Mm-hmm. It's the same example as like one thing that I learned while in university was the word student is actually extremely powerful. So if you email somebody from your university email and you say, hey, like let's say you're in business and you want to go into tech sales, you search up the top 50 tech sales CEO or head of sales in your area on LinkedIn, and you cold message them or you cold email them, whatever it be, and say, hey, I'm a student, I would love to have a coffee with you, pick your brain for like 20 minutes on what your role is, like what it's like to be in tech sales or whatever that be. I would argue that 60% of those people would take the coffee meeting, and then 20% of them will be invested in you, because everybody wants to feel like they're helping somebody else out. And especially when you're a student, people want to help younger students kind of on the come up, right? So the most successful people I've seen come out of university with like already set jobs, absolutely crushing it, or even jobs before they even graduated, were ones who actually took the initiative to message people in the industry they wanted to be in and be like, hey, what can we go for a coffee? Can I pick your brain? And then through that coffee meeting, it might have not been that person that hired them, but it was like, hey, you know what? Really like your personality. You seem like you got some good drive. I'm going to introduce you to so-and-so who is looking to hire somebody. And then through a personal connection, they get the job. And that's why people always say it's like, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Mm-hmm. I actually did a guest lecture at Grand Prairie Regional College, one of my old schools, a couple months back. And that was actually my biggest message to those who are in the personal training program right now is I'm like, do as much networking as you possibly can. Meet as many people as you can. If there's something that you want to do and you know someone else is doing it, go meet them, shake their hand, pick their brain.
Would you say that's what allowed you to get your business off the ground
Yeah.
the quickest? Because you didn't really
yeah.
do online scale where you're like, I'm just doing straight up cold acquisition. You just tapped your internal network, being someone who's on sports teams for years from so many different colleges, and leveraged your connections with coaches and other students, and were able to get your business off the ground.
Yeah, and that's really what really excelled my like actual athletic brand. But before we even get into that, kind of like to answer your question about when I was doing my practicum. So in any kin or HK degree, human and kinetics degree, your last semester has to be your practicum. So usually people go into clinics, they go into gyms, they'll work with teams, strength and conditioning, whatever they want to pursue. So basically what I did is I was actually working at a CrossFit at the time. Credit to the CrossFit. The gym itself was amazing, great clientele. The coaches there were really, really good. I learned so much from them from a programming standpoint. But during that, I basically did so much extra research because majority of it was online. I couldn't actually go into a gym until my last month because of COVID, because gyms were shut down in Alberta. So I was at home coaching online CrossFit classes. So I had to fill the rest of my time up. So all I did was read books and research how to build a brand and how to network. So then from there, I literally built enough online clientele that ever since I've been done school, I've never had to work an actual job since. I've never had to go work at a gym, a clinic, you name it.
Dude, that story gets me fucking fired up. Like, think about the students that are in their final year of school and they have so much anxiety. They're like, I don't know what I'm going to do when I leave. If I'm going to start a business, like, I'm going to start it after I leave. You were forward thinking and said, okay, COVID's happening. I can't even get into the gym and I'm just doing all this online training. What if I just continued doing this and I'm doing it for my practicum anyways. And then you converted those people into customers for your business and were already self-sustaining by the time you graduated.
100%.
Dude, that's nuts.
100%. And even just through the networking piece, like just through one of the jobs that I have is I'm the strength and conditioning coach for our Paralympic sitting volleyball team, which we're aiming to go to Paris in 2024. But through that,
Amy, you will go to Paris in 2024.
we will go to
Can't
Paris.
even say 2024, but you are going to Paris in
We
2024.
are going to Paris
right?
in 2024. No, it's a good group of guys. But through that, I literally got the job from one of my old coaches. Just having a really good relationship with him. He put a lot of trust in me. He saw what I was doing in this field, and it's been very good ever since. And through that, just the networking here with other volleyball teams, like one of our clientele is at the University of British Columbia, Okanagan. Like we trained the 2 volleyball teams there. So basically from a strength and conditioning standpoint, I've been out of school for a year. We train a professional team, 2 university teams. We coach a college team out in Lloydminster, which they're 2 of the best college volleyball programs literally in the country, plus all my online clientele.
Yeah.
Damn, that's the story of Ape Fitness.
Ape Fitness, man.
Love it.
That's
Ape
crazy,
Fitness.
man. And,
Ape, yeah.
just expanding on that, I wonder in your guys' scenario too, has your network and other people kind of like throwing you a bone, we'll say, been a part of what's allowed you guys to get your businesses off the ground?
I'm nowhere without my network.
I would agree with that as well.
Like that's, and I think university impacted that. The people I met while in university, the advice I got, like this is like how crazy it was, like how, I guess I should say how lucky I was from a network standpoint is when I did my final year of university and I pitched my mobile home business on, and then basically because I managed to win some money from it, they then they were doing this kind of beta test in the university entrepreneurship department where they're like, well, let's set you up with a board of advisors for the next year, right? And basically you meet every quarter and you go over your goals, how far you've gotten with the business, where you're at, all that kind of stuff, right? And I was really lucky that I got some crazy people on as a board of advisors for me. Like the one lady, Nan, was Good Earth Coffee. She was the founder of Good Earth Coffee. And they're like a huge brand across Canada. The other fellow was... he runs like a huge angel investment firm, and he's like huge startup guy. And then the third was a fellow that took WestJet public. He was the CFO of WestJet and took them public, and then took Dirt public. So just those 3, like the advice that I would get from them, it's crazy. Yeah. And you would just never get that elsewhere, right? So unless you like truly networked and all that. But for me, it was just kind of networking through the university, contributing to be a part of the entrepreneurship department, and just like making sure I'm a part of that community led me to pitching on stage with my business, which then led me to getting to have a board of advisors for a year, and still have that network that I could reach out to and go for a coffee anytime, and just if I ever needed to get some advice and stuff like that. So
It really shows that you should never, ever. I think the best way to put it is never try to ruin like a relationship with someone. In my opinion, like although like you're gonna have times where something goes wrong with a friendship or something goes on wrong in business, but at the end of the day, I think every conversation that you have is so important. Especially doesn't matter like if there's someone in your field that you think you admire, you like. It never hurts to just shoot them a message. I think you should always, lack of better terms of parent thing, be on your best behavior, in my opinion. Literally. Because you never know when that network could come in handy or they might reach out to you for something. Like you never know.
yeah,
It's true. You guys are making me think of another unconventional, we'll say networking and mentorship tip that I don't think people talk about enough is you have to have the right mentor that aligns with your personality.
yeah,
I think it's so critical. In business, I've had, especially in real estate, I had quite a few mentors, probably 4 or 5 now. And out of all of them, I've only had, I think, one that aligned with the way that I would like to operate and do business. Like some of them, like they were all very successful in their own right, but some of their methods of becoming successful just felt so off to me. Like the way that they would do their brand and what they would choose to stand for. Like if you think about being authentic, just by being yourself, you're always going to attract some and alienate others. No matter who you decide to be, you're going to have quote unquote enemies or people that disagree. So everyone chooses to stand for something different that feels authentic for them. And some of my mentors and the things they wanted me to stand for just did not feel like the way I wanted to do business. So they're very successful. I learned a lot of great tips from them. But in terms of actually running my business like them, I had to leave those mentors and find other ones who felt so much more authentic to who I actually am.
I agree with
That's
that.
gonna make a really good TikTok.
Like I can give you guys like an example. Like
You don't say.
I had this one real estate mentor who he was like such a go-getter. He's like, we just need to go out there. We need to put in as much offers as possible. We're not loyal to anyone and any realtor. You will need 20 realtors all competing against each other for your business. And you need to go in there and you need to just lowball offer everything and you will get a deal. But offer stuff like 60% of list price and just do this every day. Call every realtor and just be that guy. And I was like, to be honest, relationships matter to me more than the business. And I'm not going to piss off every realtor in town because I live in a fucking small town. And the last thing I need is the second I get in or anyone gets an email or a call from me, they're just like, fuck. Like that's just not how I want to do business. Like relationships matter more to me than the business itself. So I had to align with a mentor who felt the same and seen the long game of having close, like meaningful
relationships is everything.
No, that's an excellent point. Just on longevity. Like that's how you truly, truly get successful, right? Like say like the people who took WestJet public or whatever they did, they had to have longevity and trust and be able to build that up. And if you're so short-sighted with what you want to do, it's eventually going to catch up with you. You have to, and it's tough, right? Because like everyone wants that now. You know what I mean? I want that property now, or I want that extra couple bucks. But I think Gary Vee might be one of the best examples of like pushing back and like just trying to create his brand. And then in 10 years, he drops this NFT thing. I don't know actually how much money he made out of it.
60 plus million.
60 plus million. So for 10-year play to all of a sudden on one day make 60 million. Yeah, so like that's like the forward thinking and how a lot of people need to like portray what they truly are striving for. Yeah, you're always trying to get better, and like your story, like you just get out there, do it. You're doing it. But as long as you're maintaining and building those relationships and making a better network, it'll always work out in the end.
I would agree. And you know what might be a really good sign for any business owner that they're not focusing on cultivating meaningful relationships is how much repeat business do you have?
Yeah.
Like, I know some investors who have been in real estate for 40 years and they said a majority of their deals were done with the same people.
Yeah.
Over and over and over. And that whenever someone would say, I'm just going to do one deal with you, it went so well that they ended up doing 10. And he's like, I don't have to do all this acquisition of capital and like always looking for more money because the people in my network just continuously want to do more deals. To me, that is a goal worth striving for in business, is that everyone who works with you wants to do another deal or go into your next business venture. And if you're running a business where you are always having to do acquisition, you are always having to look for another customer, you're doing something wrong, and you really need to sit down and figure out what that is.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
You know, that might be a really good time to pivot into Landon's story. I think we're finally there. Landon,
Yeah.
the COVID story.
All right, let's dive into the COVID story. We'll give a little bit of background first. So, before COVID hit, I was running my mobile home business since essentially 2017, because I started in my last year of university. And so I always had this like fear as I was like starting to educate myself more and more that we were coming for a great recession or a great crash leading up to 2020. So in the back of my mind, and like I had a friend that worked for me, and we'd always be talking like on the way to work and on the way to the job sites and stuff, and talking about how, you know, things are eventually going to crash and like this recession is going to wipe out a lot of people. And, you know, Canadians have so much debt that it doesn't take much for, you know, most Canadians to go bankrupt. And so for a while, I had this like crazy fear in my head. I'm like, holy shit, like this is going to be so bad when this crash hits. Like, what the heck am I going to do? Like, is it going to wipe me out? Am I going to go bankrupt? Like, so that's just kind of giving you background to like, in my mind for many years, I had this fear that this was going to happen.
He had a hunch about COVID since
Dude, I wish I had the hunch about COVID, all right?
Somehow
Be a lot richer if I did.
him and Bill Gates were scheming together.
Yeah. I just called my buddy Bill. I was like, hey, Bill, when are you dropping this COVID thing, all right? So, yeah, leading up to that, so what's interesting is like, then I kind of took a little bit of a break from the mobile home business. Then I got back into the mobile home business in 2019. And, you know, things were going good and, you know, staying steady. I wouldn't say they were like amazing or anything like that, but they were like staying steady. And leading up to when 2020 came, my big plan was actually like, I was doing the mobile homes, but I was slowly trying to pivot into creating a direct consumer brand focused around, you know, vitamin gummies. So that was when I was like studying that whole landscape. And then I'd say, so back in December 2019, the same buddy that I used to talk to the recession all the time was warning me about COVID. This was like late December 2019. And I was like, yeah, whatever, you're fucking nuts. Like, doesn't really matter. It's happening in China. It's not a big deal. Whatever's going on. Then January hits, still not a big deal. And February, I still remember, I picked my aunt up from the airport, and she like worries a lot. And she's in the drive just like lecturing me. She's like, this could be really bad. Like COVID could wipe us out. Like this could be really bad. And I'm like, yeah. Don't worry about it. Like it's not going to be that bad. And she was like really grilling me like to worry about it. And I still didn't really worry about it. I was like, kind of maybe took it a little bit more serious, but like still no big deal. And then so March 2nd, Maddie and I flew out to Hawaii. We had a trip planned a long time ago. And we flew out to Hawaii. And this is when I just started like, okay, maybe I should start paying more attention to what's actually going on with COVID. Because this is when I believe March was when the Italy thing was going really crazy. Because I think February was kind of when it started. It was really starting to go crazy. And then every day in Hawaii, I shit you not, like it was like every day got worse and worse with my fear. All of a sudden I'd be talking to Maddie and I'm like, I think this like COVID is actually going to get like worse. Like I think shit's going to get crazy. She's like, stop worrying about it. You're listening to the radio. Like just stop. And then like every day I just started worrying. And like at this point, like I didn't have like a bunch of money. Like I was pretty cash strapped and everything like that. And I knew like when I got back, I had to really hit the ground running with the mobile homes, like to really make a big push. And yeah, sure enough, like the day we flew back was the day we flew back and landed in Canada was the day they were like, you have to quarantine for 14 days if you've came internationally. So we land. I literally have like no money. And I'm like, fuck, this is going to be bad. So I started panicking all this, but what's interesting is on the flight, like I pay attention to a lot of things that kind of happen on like with other people. And like one thing I noticed is like on the news everywhere, everybody's like, there's a shortage of hand sanitizer. And I started to see these things that kind of pop up, and I was like, okay, well, maybe, just maybe I can figure out a way. Like there might be an opportunity here. And so I had seen on my Instagram some girl I had saw it at one of the entrepreneurship events in the US I went to was advertising, hey, we have hand sanitizer. And I was just like, how the fuck does she have hand sanitizer? Like literally nobody has it. Like these breweries are like redoing everything just to make it. And anyway, so I messaged her, and that was like, I messaged her, go on the flight. We land back in Calgary. And she messaged back saying, yeah, like we have hand sanitizer. So I get home, everything like that. Next day I phone my dad, and I'm like, Dad, phone the city of Calgary, because he has a really good long-standing relationship with the city of Calgary. And he's like, phone them to see if they needed anything. Like, do they need hand sanitizer? We could potentially get it. So he phones them, and then he like immediately phones you back. He's like, they need hand sanitizer. Like, what? Can we get it, and when? And is it legit? So then immediately, like, I kicked into gear. I'm like, okay, I have to figure this out now. Went through, tried to do all the due diligence from what this girl was selling in the US. It was coming from California. And then as soon as I got the documents, I saw, and it was basically like the documents for like the registration to like actually be able to produce and sell the hand sanitizer was like in like Minnesota, but like they were producing them in a garage in California. So it was just like completely illegal, wouldn't have never passed the border. Like it was some young entrepreneur that's like, oh, we're just going to mix a bunch of shit and make hand sanitizer in a garage.
Starts burning people's hands.
Right, it was like
hydrochloric acid.
And this was actually like a big deal, right? Because that's actually what can happen and things can go bad. So that led me to basically being like, okay, this sucks. Like we can't now sell this, but they're literally looking for it. Like they need hand sanitizer and they need masks like really bad. So just by luck, I remembered, and I knew at this point, like everybody was doing their best to source from China because that's where everything comes from. So everybody's trying to source from China. And I had a family member that I remember talking to back in January when he was visiting. And he basically was talking about a guy that he does business with. And the guy's one of the largest importer and exporters, like out of Vancouver into basically importing from China into Vancouver. And I was like, I wonder if this guy would have any connections or if I could somehow skip the line or something and just get access to it, right? So phone the family member, Danny, and I'm like, hey, like any way like you could just find out if this guy could get me hand sanitizer or like some masks or anything like that. And he's like, okay, like sure, I'll see what I can do. And sure enough, he phones me back and he's like, okay, this guy is like gonna phone, like we're gonna go on a 3-way call and he'll get you the right connections. And then basically this guy phones me and is like, if you're Danny's family, I love Danny, I'll take care of him, so I'll take care of you. And immediately this guy connected me with a guy named Roger in Toronto. And this Roger guy, I was just like, it almost seemed like too surreal. I didn't believe it. But this Roger guy, once I got all connected, Roger had a bunch of masks, N95 masks, which were like just impossible to find. Like you were not finding any N95 masks in Canada, no matter what. Like they were just gone. They were eaten up. And this dude had an entire warehouse. And then he also had an area where they were producing licensed hand sanitizer. And it was gel-based hand sanitizer. So it wasn't just like the liquid, like really smells like shit, really bad hand sanitizer. It was actually really good quality. And so and I'm literally just texting this guy because he didn't really want to talk over the phone. So he's like, let's just text.
He didn't have good English, right?
No.
And to put context to this too, like you for your mobile home business, like you had a sum of money that you had to pay your investors too, right? Like,
oh yeah,
you were like, to add to it, like you were under a lot of stress from your mobile home business and you owed your investors some
Yeah, there
capital,
is.
right?
Oh yeah, like there is a lot of stress from like I had owed capital from the mobile home business, and we were shut down, so you literally can't even do anything. Like real estate had stopped, so like that was like the whole added pressure. But I think like during that month of this like kind of all happening, it just kind of like was like just sheer focus on this one thing, right? It was just like this is the opportunity, need to capitalize on it now because it's not going to last very long. And yeah, so with the Roger guy, basically connected with him, managed to, get a purchase order from the city of Calgary. At first, they were like, we'll take as much hand sanitizer. Like they wanted an obscene amount of hand sanitizer. And this guy couldn't even produce that much. He's like, I can only get you that if you guys are willing to wait like 6 weeks. Like I can do a certain amount every week. They were like, we don't want to wait. We want it all now. So we took everything he had at the time from a hand sanitizer perspective. And then the mask side, the interesting part is it was just long story short for the mask branding side, it was a brand called Noveco. And basically there was this company in Singapore that had basically had $100 million a year contract with a Canadian manufacturer called Noveco, who made N95 masks and like level 2, level 3 ATSM level masks. And then they like basically they lost that the manufacturer lost the contract with the Singapore company, and then they just kind of shut down. They're like, okay, well, there's no point doing this anymore. And just people in Ontario managed to just buy up these like large lots of, N95 masks, and they hadn't expired either. So that was like the crazy part is we were worried they were expired because this manufacturing stopped in like 2019. Anyway, so he had a bunch, and basically, yeah, City of Calgary was like, yeah, here's our purchase order for hand sanitizer, and here's our purchase order for the masks. And they're like, we want them tomorrow. So the scary part is like, we had the purchase order from the City of Calgary, but we now had to fork out the money to purchase the hand sanitizer and masks. So it was basically the deal was a 50% deposit and then a 50% payment once it arrives in Calgary. And so...
And you were responsible for that payment, not the City of Calgary?
That's correct, because we're the ones saying we're going to provide it. So, yeah, my dad was like, okay, well, fuck it. Let's just do it. Like, it's like, there's no other way we can do more due diligence. We like tried as much as we can. We got as much information about the Roger guy. Everything seems legit. Let's just take the leap. So we had to wire over Roger $30,000, and he basically shipped the masks, showed proof, and like, dude, I didn't sleep that night. I was so scared. Like, I don't even think my dad, mom slept. Like, we were all just like freaking out because we're like, this is fucked. Like, we're in the midst of like just the beginning of COVID. Everybody's saying the world's gonna end basically because of COVID, and we just wired money to like basically get these masks and everything like that. So that was like a pretty like scary night. And then they arrive, and we check them, and we drop them off at the City of Calgary, and everything checks out. And we're like, fuck, this is insane. Like this, everything's good. They're happy with it. And then they're like, okay, we want more. So they were willing to put another purchase order in. And at the time, at this point, now that I knew it was legit, I was just like, okay, I'm going to hit the ground running. And so I went on LinkedIn and I found all the procurement managers. I messaged City of Edmonton, Kelowna, Saskatchewan. Like I went everywhere. And basically we ended up supplying like majority of Western Canadian cities with hand sanitizers and N95, N99 masks, to the point that we sold out all of Roger's stock. And the interesting part that really frustrated me, and like people don't see this from, like, the only reason I saw this was because I was in the midst of it. But like, let's say like within the cities, like these procurement managers, like they were not quick enough. They could have easily supplied, like there was points when I was like, we literally, if you guys do not buy it by Friday at 3 p.m., if you wait till Monday, this lot is gone. Like we had to go search for more lots of these masks. And at that point, we're like, if you do not get it, and they like, sometimes they would like, Friday at 3 p.m., they're done work. It doesn't matter. We'll get it on Monday. And then they call on Monday, we need it. Nope, it's gone. So we lost out on a lot of money potential from that side because they weren't fast enough. But also, I think everybody suffered from that side because they just didn't take the personal responsibility to actually put the effort in and be like, you know what, I'll either work the weekend or we'll just whatever we need to do to make this happen. But yeah, basically, we got huge order from Edmonton, Calgary. We were supplying like, central Okanagan. And we basically were the first to supply them all with masks and hand sanitizer before anybody could even get masks from China, anything. Like people were just like, the procurement guys were just like, I don't know how you're even getting them. People were like, I can't believe we're getting them right now.
So let me get this straight. Back a little bit here. You finish school. You become a mobile home flipper.
Yeah.
Things go well.
Yeah.
You take a little bit of a side turn and you decide to go on this romantic getaway with Maddie. You give her a horrible time because you talk about COVID the entire time. She's upset. Because of that conversation, you turned into this juggernaut and found hand sanitizer for Western Canada. And now you can afford to send Maddie to Hawaii for the next 10 years to make up for your bad time in Hawaii.
Yeah, shit.
But tell about it too when you didn't you pick up the hand sanitizer in like Vancouver with your dad in a U-Haul too the one time?
Dude, no. Okay, I'll get to that. That's
because
like,
that was
that's not
fucking
even hand
hilarious too.
sanitizer.
Yeah.
So this all happens. Okay, so what I just explained happened within 1 month, okay? This all happened within 1 month, and it was like crazy fast. And then it stopped for a bit because I couldn't get anything. And I'm just like, at this point, I'm just networking with everybody. And like, this would be the point, I'd say the month in was the point when everybody's a PPE expert and everybody's selling, PPE, hand sanitizer, mask, all this shit, right? And then this is when fraud was just at the highest level. So I just kind of was like, okay, well, screw it. Like, things work out, they do. If not, whatever. And then I basically got connected with my dad's friend's friend who was like, he was helping his buddy. So originally I got connected because of just like the PPE. He was trying to do some stuff with masks and hand sanitizer as well. But then he had a buddy that was a VP in a company in Calgary that was producing an insane amount of hand sanitizer. Like, I can't even explain how big the warehouse was of just like the 5-gallon pails that they were filling with hand sanitizer. It was mind-boggling. This company got the contract from the government of Canada. Like the government of Canada phoned them and was like, you're going to make hand sanitizer for us now, because they had ethyl alcohol. So they had the stuff that basically would be like medical grade. And then so this all happens. I'm like, okay, well, like, what do these guys want? And sure enough, he's like, well, can we get, bottles? But they don't want like plastic. Because keep in mind, when the hand sanitizer thing happens, then the whole supply chain gets disrupted. And now there's a shortage of hand sanitizer bottles. So now people are resorting to, like, I don't know if you ever went to a Canadian Tire, but it would just be like 5-gallon pails of hand sanitizer. Like
then you had a pump. You
literally,
pumped it
like,
out,
people
right?
were resorting to like everything just to fill, like alcohol bottles to fill with hand sanitizer, right? And so it was because everybody's buying from China. And so basically, long story short, they need bottles, but they don't want to buy them from China. They want 250 milliliter style bottles. Don't want it from China, but they want to test the market out. And so then I got connected with another guy out of Vancouver, and just by luck, he was also trying to get in the PPE game, but he was living in Vietnam for a while, and his girlfriend still lived in Vietnam. And so we got talking. I was like, well, what are the chances we could get bottles from Vietnam? And he's like, well, let me talk to my girlfriend and see. And sure enough, they basically sourced this like little manufacturer, and this manufacturer had never exported before. And we've got all the paperwork in line, and we basically ordered 250,000 plastic bottles from this manufacturer, put it on a container, shipped it to Canada, and then basically it came in 2 different shipments. Like the shipments got all screwed up, and what ended up happening was I was like to my dad, like, hey, let's just go pick up the plastic bottle caps instead of waiting for them because they really want them. So we basically went up to Vancouver, picked it right up from the port in a U-Haul, packed this U-Haul shut, drove, stopped in Kelowna, did a walkthrough, basically decided to make an offer on a mobile home here, which started my progress to actually moving to Kelowna, and just ended up coming back to to Calgary, dropped off the stuff, and like, yeah, we basically supplied. We were the shitty part is we thought we were gonna get like an order for like 3 million bottles. That was like what was promised, was like me and the guy to Vancouver were like really stoked. We're like, we're gonna get this huge order, but they never followed through with it, and that's just what happens in this type of environment. But it was just pretty cool for the whole experience of, you know, basically, and it was just kind of like you just do things on the fly. And I think so. Kind of wrapping that up, that's my story of what kind of happened through that whole process. But for the viewers to actually get a lesson out of it, and like why I don't ever fear recessions or anything now, because the big lesson is there's a lot of talk about recessions right now and a fear around like, what do? You know, keep your job. Like, am I going to go bankrupt? Like a lot of fear mongering and stuff like that. And that was like I know that fear because I had that fear leading up towards COVID, thinking we were going to go into some great recession. And then when COVID hit, like nobody expected it. And it's one of those things that you almost just do things on the fly. And once you realize you can actually do things on the fly, like I would have never guessed I could do all of this, but it just so happened to be that things aligned, stars aligned, I guess. And we managed to do it all on the fly. And that's why I think when people say recessions are the greatest opportunities, it's because you have to actually keep an eye out and look for the opportunity. So when things take a turn, things go negative, and people are really down and, oh my God, the world's ending, there's always a problem somewhere that you can solve. And during recessions, I think that's the biggest opportunity to solve problems for people in all aspects. You just have to actually open your eyes and look and be diligent and willing to take the action fast. Because that's the one thing we did is I just like, there'd be days when I was like on the phone for like 8 hours just back and forth, just trying to make this happen for the hand sanitizer. And we're just calling back and forth. And the amount of people I had talked to and threw out like feelers just to see if I could catch opportunity through that was like so many. It's crazy. And really only like 3 panned out. I'd say I probably talked to 100 people. 3 of them actually panned out. Yeah. Right. So that's kind of my lesson out of the whole story, was just like, be willing to just take the action and just move very fast with it. What's up?
Okay, I just wanted to cut in because I had two things. I think one of the coolest things about that story, Landon, is when you kind of got into the aspect of, hey, now everyone's starting to supply hand sanitizer. Rather than you just being like, you know what, I just did this really big deal. I just got this done. I'm going to take a step back. Mm-hmm. You're like, no, who can I reach out to now? And that's when then to go even further on that, dude, think of the impact you just made on that company in Vietnam, who's never, ever exported out of anywhere else.
Yeah.
And then they're like, this company from Canada is just like, they want 250,000 bottles.
You want to know something crazy? Like, this is how big the impact was, or at least basically the Amanda, which was Brandon out of Vancouver, his girlfriend, who basically was the quarterback to all this. She coordinated everything from Vietnam. And they basically, the largest factory that supplies a lot of bottles for like Kirkland and all that, found out that this order got placed with this factory for 250,000 bottles. And next thing you know, they like reached out to her, decided to pick her up, did a full factory tour with her, was like, this is everything we can do for you here. Like, our factory can produce whatever you want. So like just that order there made the impact that like the largest factory in the area was like, whoa, we want this business.
Do you know how cool that is? You did that. Yeah. You literally did that.
The group.
Well, yes.
It's a network effect. Like, I think it's just a function of like, and don't get me wrong, like even at the beginning, like had it not been for like having that conversation with Danny, my family member, and like just him being so generous to connect me with his contact, like there's a lot of moving pieces that I got very lucky with at the same time. And like my dad being connected with the city of Calgary, right? But then there's also pieces where like I could have just left it with the city of Calgary, but I decided to direct message every procurement manager in Western Canada. So there is points when like when the momentum's there, you take fucking action on it and you do not stop.
Yeah. Man, the impact that you just had on so many people goes so far.
We probably used his hand sanitizer.
Dude, we probably did.
Well, I went in for permits over in West Kelowna and I'm looking, I'm like, oh shit, you guys use my hand sanitizer.
Nice.
Right? And even for like the Roger guy in Toronto, like he was shocked at how much business we gave him. Like, I think he just didn't expect that we were going to wipe out their entire stock. And we did. And they had to ramp up their hand sanitizer manufacturing. They like
Rogers probably
they
sitting in Hawaii
tripled
right now.
Yeah.
dude, they had to triple their output, and like it was nuts. But
Unreal, man. That's so cool.
It's like similar to the shoe dog story of Phil Knight when you'd go over to Japan to like procure the shoes from like Tiger or whatever it was. And like just all the battles of like trying to figure it out how to do it. It's just, that was literally probably one of the best stories I've heard in my whole entire life on just doing whatever it took to get something done and just like and seeing it through and capitalizing on an opportunity.
yeah. And like, I guess another lesson from that is like to not stay too hung up on the opportunity either. So like I knew when to step away from it. Like there were so many people in the industry trying to sell, and they were like literally just selling basically dreams, right? So they'd be like, oh, so-and-so that I know that knows so-and-so that knows so-and-so has 500,000 masks. Why don't you supply your contact with them so that contact can supply the government? And it was like 20 people in the middle of this fucking gong show trying to distribute masks, and everybody wants the most profit that they can take along the way, right? Yeah. And that's why there's a lot of fraud that went on. Like there's a lot of people that made tens. Like I knew of people that made, $5-10 million off of one transaction because they supplied the United States. Wow. But then there's also the other flip side where people basically did fraud. They basically sold, let's say New York got fraud. Like they tried to buy masks and the mask never got delivered, but they wired like $1 million over or something. Like, so there was just like crazy amount. And then the political side of like nitrile gloves, that was like one that I tried to get into. That's like a story for another time, but basically, in short, like governments were controlling the supply, and like there was so much stuff behind the scenes that when you dove into it, you would be shocked at how much impact or influence there was from like a government standpoint. And then also like how inefficient our local governments run. It's actually kind of sad how inefficient it was. Like during crisis times, it should have been a lot quicker and a lot better. And if a guy like me can source this kind of stuff, what the fuck is a procurement manager doing? Yeah. Why aren't you sourcing all of this yourself?
Yeah, it's not like you were positioned to be the guy that was like,
No.
We're just waiting for an opportunity. Like you were like, oh, can I find it? And then can I supply it? Like you basically did it off the cuff with no prior knowledge or really you got kind of lucky on the prior connections. It's not like you were sitting on like hand sanitizer connections waiting.
Dude, not at all. I literally got super lucky with the connections and had to learn everything and the lingo within, I'd say, 72 hours.
Yeah. Isn't it in one of the books that you guys always talk about is like a lot of business is actually just luck?
Well, it's that's more of like a Taleb thing, like fooled by randomness, where people think that they attribute a lot of their success to their own actions, not realizing how much luck goes into it. And that's not to discredit people's success. It's more of like a humbling like thing that gives you humility to realize that a lot of your success does boil down to luck. And maybe like we end it there. Actually, what do you guys think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of a low note to end it on. Like, yeah, all of your success is down to luck. See you later.
Yeah.
Well, it's just, I think it's super interesting too. Like when you relate it, I know in Landon's case, probably that was years of hard work just to get lucky on one opportunity. And that's how it kind of manifests over a long period of time. And yeah, a lot of people will always attribute that I was so unintelligent and I designed all this product, when a lot of times it was just like, hey, you had the product that the market wanted at the time. And that was mostly luck. But you do get a lot more lucky when you stick with it and work hard for a long period of time.
And I think just keeping an opportunistic mindset, no matter what.
Yeah, never a closed door.
No matter what position you're put in, always be opportunistic about everything. And like just
rational optimism.
Yeah. Don't be like delusionally well, I'm a delusional optimist, but like don't be like that far gone. But you know what I mean? Like,
yep.
It's important to be optimistic, but within the reality that you're.
So here would be a question for our listeners. Where do people see a next big opportunity themselves, and how can they capitalize on it? Mm-hmm. And it's like masks and hand sanitizer have been around forever, right? And just so happened that the market fit of COVID had a huge supply and demand. So yeah, where do we see the next big opportunity coming in this wave?
And we'll just kind of maybe leave on this note, but one thing I've noticed that in today's world is more important than ever is like a generalist knowledge about things. So the best way to explain that would be a person that is willing to learn different aspects of like, not even just business, but just like knowledge, like life, everything. Because there could be an opportunity where your skill set is the complete opposite to the industry that the opportunity is in. But when you jump in with that different skill set, like that could create a whole world of opportunities, if that makes sense.
Like,
I'm not explaining that correct.
I can elaborate on it if you like.
Yeah.
It's where innovation happens. Like you should know the 20% of all your like related industries that'll get you 80% of your results. So you should know at least 20% about business. That gets you like 80% of the base knowledge. Maybe 20% about consumer psychology. That gets you 80% of the knowledge. 20% on marketing. That gets you 80% of the marketing. And if something is required further than that, you should delegate to someone who's specialized or choose to specialize. You cannot specialize in everything. There's not enough time.
No.
So you want to specialize in one thing, but you want to know the basics that get you the most amount of results in the other areas.
And I think it's just a function of being able to pull skill sets from one industry into the next.
That's where,
right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like to maybe ground that in an example. If you're in tech, what could you do in the automotive industry?
Boom.
That's Tesla.
There you go. Yeah.
Right. If you're in, like, let's say that you're in trades and you're used to using your hands. What if you went into a different business and instead of doing the work yourself, you did like education?
Mm-hmm.
Like just having your skill set, the way your mind works in one area, like being an engineer. What if an engineer tried to solve one of the world's biggest problems with cleaning up garbage? Like try to take your skill set and apply it in a different environment because you'll see the problem different than other people. And that could be what that particular niche actually needs.
It's exactly what I was thinking in my head, and you just explained it. So thank you.
I
could not come up with the words. Yeah.
All right.
I think we leave it at that.
We'll leave it at that.
Beauty.
We'll see you guys next week.